Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for Twisted, which is episode 6 of season 2 of Star Trek Voyager. This video is a part of a series of videos where I review episodes of Voyager, one episode at a time. In this video, I cover the second season episode Twisted. So Twisted is the episode in which most of the senior staff are in the holodeck celebrating Kess's birthday when Voyager comes across a strange phenomenon. Some stupid anomaly which causes the ship, changes the interior structure of the ship, but all the walls and rooms remain perfectly intact somehow. It's just different rooms that end up on different levels, and somehow the ship is inverted among themselves, so every time someone tries to get to the bridge, they end up back in a different place, and no one can find the place where they're at, and they're all funky, and eventually they try all these like weird things like transporters and warp core shit to try to defeat this anomaly, but everything they try fails, and eventually Tuvok is like, well, let's just give up and let the anomaly envelop us. So they stand there thinking they're going to die and the anomaly's coming, but they're all perfectly fine. And apparently it was all this strange alien creature or alien species way of introducing themselves, and apparently they had downloaded the Voyager's library, and they uploaded like a lot of information to Voyager about them, which we never hear about and never know what it is because it's never mentioned again. So yeah, and then Neelix shows up and gives birthday cake to everyone. So I often talk about personal milestones for me. Like I mentioned when I was covering Next Generation, that the episode Disaster in Season 5 was the first episode of Star Trek that I saw as it aired, that I saw live, that I didn't just watch in reruns. And at that point, and ever since that point, I had been recording every new episode of Star Trek as it aired, and recording on VHS, going back and watching it multiple times and seeing it over and over again. And I said I would let you know when we got to the point where I stopped recording new Star Trek episodes on VHS. So we are now at that point, because this is the last episode of Voyager that I had recorded on VHS and watched over and over again, which means from this point forward, I had only seen each episode of Voyager once when it aired, and I didn't go back and watch it over and over again, so I am not as familiar with the upcoming Voyager episodes. Now, Deep Space Nine, funnily enough, I actually kept recording for a little bit. So I won't get to the point in Deep Space Nine where I stopped recording for another 4 or 5 episodes, but this is the point in Voyager where I stopped recording. And I don't remember why I stopped recording. I guess I find it was just like got a little bit apathetic. It was when I got a bit older too. Like I think I was 16 at this point, and I was probably just living life and doing other things, and maybe this is the period I was entering my depression phase, and maybe I just lost any sort of motivation to I didn't really get out of Star Trek more. It's not like I was like, oh, the show sucks now, so I'm going to stop recording it. I just kind of lost motivation, especially true of Deep Space Nine, although I will say maybe I was not very impressed with the first first part of season 2 of Voyager, but I don't think that's why I stopped recording. I think I just was too busy doing other things, and I just didn't have the motivation. So Yeah, so from this point onward, I had only seen each episode once, not repeatedly, until much later in life. In fact, there's a few episodes of Voyager that I didn't watch at all when they first aired, and I didn't actually see them until several years after they aired, and I will get to those select few episodes of Voyager. I don't know if there's any Deep Space Nine episodes I missed when they first aired. Like, there might have been, but I don't think so. I think it was mainly just Voyager, because I wasn't quite as into Voyager as Deep Space Nine. So anyway, that is the personal milestone for me. So now let me get into my personal story with this episode, which I've told several times before on my channel, but I think it's worth mentioning in the video that's actually about the episode. And this wasn't when it first aired. It was, I believe it was the summer of 98. And this aired in the autumn of 95. So 3 years later around, we went to a festival with my friends that we used to hang out with and get like stoned all the time, and we did LSD together for the first time. And then the next day, or a couple days later, like I can't remember. I think we tried LSD again, but it was too close to when we took it before, so it didn't have that strong of an effect. So we're kind of sort of high, but not like super tripping. And, we're hanging around the house, and we decided to turn on TV, and Voyager was on reruns. And this episode was airing. So me and my friends watched this episode, and my friend sometimes likes to talk over shows, like kind of like a Mystery Science Theater of Robots, which I actually found really funny. And and so with this episode, as we were watching it, he invented this scenario in which the cake that Neelix gave everyone at the start of the episode had LSD in it. Now, in the actual episode itself, people actually didn't eat the cake, but in his scenario, I suppose they ate it off screen. So all the events where everyone was running around the ship and getting lost, it was like, oh, they're really tripping. They're tripping on LSD, especially the point where Janeway, after she touched the weird phenomenon, when they showed the weird twisty thingy, and they were like, oh, they're really tripping now. and when they showed Janeway, and she was after that, and she started going loopy, and she was looking at the doctor, and the doctor looked all strange and popped out and going and talking weird. They're like, oh wow, she's really tripping. she hit the height of the trip. And then when she sits up and starts shouting gibberish, go dog, they're like, oh no, she's having a bad trip now. and everyone else is tripping. That's why they keep ending up in the wrong place and thinking rooms aren't where they should be. And I remember very clearly at the end of the episode when they're on the bridge, they're like, oh yeah, they're over the trip, they're now sober, they're over it, and everything's back to normal. But then Neelix shows up in the bridge with the cake, saying, who wants cake? And I remember my friend immediately was like, oh no, Neelix, not any more cake, come on, that's enough. Because in his scenario was laced with LSD. So I found that, I always remember that, because that was more enjoyable than the episode itself. In fact, I remember when we first started watching that episode, I'm like, oh god, let's not watch this episode, it kind of sucks. And they're like, no, let's watch it anyway. I think we did the same thing to the Deep Space Nine episode, Distant Voices, which really sucks, and they tried to say the same thing. It was like, oh, he's tripping, but it didn't hold up to me as well, and I think we were sober at the time, and I was like, yeah, that's actually not funny, but it was really funny here. So something I remember more than the episode itself. which is not very good. So let's get into the episode itself. It's just another boring, stupid Anomaly bullshit. And it essentially, in the episode, it's essentially, let's try, this Anomaly's, messing up Voyager. Let's try all this technobabble bullshit to try to overcome it. And none of the technobabble bullshit works. So they're like, let's just stand around and do nothing, and hopefully everything will be fine. And it was. That's boring. That is really boring. And on top of that, in between that, most of the episode is just people wandering around the hallways going, I can't find this room. I'm looking for the bridge. Well, I'm looking for engineering. Well, I'm looking for the cargo bay. I can't find it. Can you find it? I can't find where my quarters are at. Or we're back at the holiday. And then everyone ends up back at the holiday. Only the main characters, I should say. All the other ensigns or whatever, they don't end up at the holiday. Just the main characters. Always end up back at the holiday. And that's it. That's the episode. And also we get some side plot with Neelix's jealousy, which is a storyline I have no interest in whatsoever, that nobody has any interest in because it's stupid. And, I will say, on the storyline with Neelix's jealousy, at the start of the episode, when they're at Kess's birthday party, and Tom Paris gives her a gift of this golden locket, this jewelry. And she was like, this must have cost you a week's worth of replicator rations. And he's like, actually 2 weeks, but who's counting? Neelix has every right to be jealous and to call this out, but what the fuck? Because that's the kind of gift. That is not the kind of gift a friend gives to another friend. I have a really, really close female friend, and I would not give her a gift like that. And she's married, because if I did, I have every expectation that her husband, who I'm also good friends with, would not be okay with that, because that's not an okay thing to do. And I'm really shocked, in fact, that no one else there took Tom Paris aside, maybe Harry Kim, who's good friends with him, that no one took him aside and was like, dude, that's not cool. You can't do that. Cass has a boyfriend. She's with someone else. What were you thinking? How can you do that, man? Just back off. And even Janeway, I think, would have been appropriate for her to be Mr. Paris, that's not an appropriate thing to do. What are you trying to do here? Are you trying to start drama on my ship? What's going on here? Instead, Neelix goes to Chakotay and it's did you see that? And Chakotay's what? See what? And he's well, that was very thoughtful, or something like that. And Chakotay's okay, whatever. No, Chakotay should have been yeah, I saw that, and that's pretty fucked up. I'm going to talk to him about it, because that's not cool. That should have been the reaction. It's just, I think this scene is wrong. I think the writers don't understand what Tom Paris just did. And especially the way he was I spent 2 weeks of rations or whatever for a gift just for you. That's actually the kind of gift that a boyfriend would give his girlfriend. But I did like what they did with Neelix and how he was being self-aware. He's yeah, I'm having, and when he was talking to Chakotay later, and he's yeah, I'm having these feelings of jealousy. I don't really know what to, I don't like it. It's very unpleasant. Have you felt that? And Chakotay is yeah, of course. Everyone has feelings of jealousy. It shows that you're afraid of losing the person you love. So I think, and I like that Neelix was self-aware. Although not to get too personal, but this hits us kind of a personal chord with me because when I was married, a couple times when I was super jealous that my wife was getting a bit too close to another guy, both times I was vindicated and she was actually having an affair both times. So I'm kind of on Neelix's side here. Absolutely, and especially because of what Tom Paris did. The way that he made it obvious. Like that's not like, even if he didn't have feelings for her, but it's clear that he does, which we'll find out in the next episode. He in fact does, which I think is pretty obvious, not only in this episode but previous episodes. And yeah, I'm just amazed that no one else called him out on it. Like, they should have called him out on it, I think. But and yeah, so a lot of people like to put down Neelix as someone, this jealous, controlling freak. But he's actually not being controlling in this episode at all. He's trying to be understanding and lenient. Now, there's that one scene, though, when he's walking with Cass to the quarters, and Cass is like, this isn't the deck my quarters are supposed to be on, because that's Lieutenant What's-His-Face Baxter or whatever, and his quarters are on Deck 7, and then there's Aiello's quarters on Deck 6, and Neelix is like, how do you know where all these men's quarters are? Which, and she's like, I don't know, I just remember it. Which, I don't know. Maybe that is a bit weird. Wouldn't it? I think maybe that would be a bit of a red flag, but I don't know. But it's not, like in this case, we know that Cass is not sleeping around with all these random men. But that is a bit odd. So, I think Neelix is kind of justified, especially since after that display with Tom Paris, that he would be questioning everything. Like, I think that's perfectly normal. So, I don't think that Neelix is being too controlling or over. And this will also inform when I cover the next episode, because I'll bear this in mind, that Tom Paris was very obviously being inappropriate with Cass, and I think that will inform the next episode. But yeah, so the scenes with the doctor and the holographic barmaid, or owner of the bar, hitting on him constantly was dumb. It was dumb. I couldn't care less about that. Also, I took note on the scene with Janeway and Harry Kim, and Janeway's, they're crawling through the the Jeffries tubes. And Janeway's like, Kim, the job you have been has been exceptional. You've been a bright part of this mission. I've been very impressed with you. And when I was watching that scene, I was like, you're full of shit, Janeway, because you never promote him in 7 years. If you really felt this way, why did you never promote him? Of course, we know why. It's because Brennan Braga said somebody has to be the ensign, which doesn't make any fucking sense. But anyway, I have plenty of time to complain about that more. But seriously, like, she's like, oh, you did the best job. Oh, I'm so impressed, but I'm going to demote Tom Paris and then promote him back. And I'm going to promote Tuvok. But you're going to fucking stay an ensign for 7 years. Even though you're a senior officer who's so awesome. And this, I think, is the first episode where... Well, maybe not the first episode. There was Faces, but that was only the human version of B'Elanna. But this is the first episode we see Tom and B'Elanna at least like share a screen together and have dialogue back and forth with just between the two of them. And they have no chemistry. There's no indication that they have any feelings, especially the way that Tom's like schmoozing on Cass. It's clear that that's where his heart lies, not with B'Elanna. That whole thing came out of nowhere. But again, I'll have plenty of time to get into that as we get into season 3, that shit show of a season. And then the scene where B'Elanna opens up the door to engineering to try to, get into this other room of engineering, but it's been changed where someone's quarters and there's this dude in his underwear, and she's like, oh, shocked. She's like, there's an emergency, stay in your quarters. And he, kind of hides in the corner. He's like, okay, and she hides in the corner. It's like, and Tom Paris goes over and is like, I think you handled that well. That was funny. I will say that was funny. But other than that, there's really not much to this episode. In fact, I was watching the Delta Flyers podcast about this episode, and Robert Duncan McNeil was really he was dunking. He was really dunking on this episode. He was really putting it down and saying similar things to what I'm thinking is like, nothing really happens. What's the point of this plot? And oh god, what's the dude's name who wrote it? I talked about him before negatively. Something Biller, who becomes the showrunner in season 7, and I thought that he was terrible because season 7 was not a good season, and he's said some quotes like he was one of the people that wanted to push Michael Piller out of the show. Kenneth Biller, that's his name, Kenneth Biller. And I don't think of him very favorably. I haven't looked up exactly which episodes that he wrote, but he wrote this one, and I'm thinking to myself, yeah, that figures. That does kind of figure that he wrote this episode, because it's not good. Now, I know he wrote some good episodes I like Life Signs. I know he wrote that, which is a good episode. But, I don't know. The Voyager just doesn't have very good writers, I think. But Robert Duncan McNeil did point out that, maybe it's not his fault exactly, because the writing process is more of a collaborative thing. They have people in the room who sort of break the episode and they assign it to someone. So he made a point that I had made several times before, and some people pushed back on that, and they're objectively wrong. This is something that I've studied. I heard quotes directly from people. When I say that if there's a terrible episode, it might not necessarily be the fault of the credited writer. I think the perfect example of this is the episode Sub Rosa, where Brennan Braga is the credited writer for that episode, but I actually blame Jerry Taylor more when you hear the backstory, because she's the one who bought the idea from someone who pitched it, and she's the one that pushed it, and against Michael Piller and Rick Berman's wishes, and she's the one that pawned it off to Brennan Braga and say, here, you write it. So I don't really blame him as much as I blame Jerry Taylor. And so maybe that was the situation here, but I doubt it, because I don't think Kenneth Biller's a good writer. I think this is maybe typical of the job he did. Okay, I'm curious though. I want to see which episodes he's credited. Alright, so he has a written by credit on Initiations, which was a very bad episode I talked about. Teleplay credit on Elogium, another bad episode. Teleplay in Twisted, a bad episode. Written by in Maneuvers. Maneuvers was okay. We'll get to that later. Written by in Life Science, as I said, a really good episode. Teleplay and Tuvix, and don't fucking even get me started. Don't even get me started on Tuvix. Teleplay on The Shoot, another bad episode. Teleplay by the Q and the Gray, terrible episode. Written by credit on Unity. Unity was okay. I liked Unity. Before and After, terrible soap opera episode. Worst Case Scenario, written by credit. Worst Case Scenario was good. It was a good episode. Nemesis, that's an amazing episode. So there we go. One really, really good episode. Random Thoughts, kind of a shit episode. Demons, yeah, kind of a shit episode. Extreme Risk, yeah, dumb episode. 30 Days, really terrible episode. The Disease, Harry Kim was totally out of character, so dumb episode. Juggernaut, boring episode. Warhead, I liked. Warhead was a really, really good episode. but it was mainly for the acting. Pathfinder was fine. Virtuoso was stupid. Hunting of Deck 12 was kind of dumb. What else we got? Repression was a terrible episode. Critical Care was a good episode, but he only has a story by credit for that. But that was a good idea. Flesh and Blood is fine. Prophecy, that's dumb. The Void was a great episode, but again, story by credit. Workforce, he has a written by credit, and that's a great two-parter. So props for that. Human Error was fucking terrible. Q2 was kind of dumb. Natural Law was kind of dumb. In Game, of course, I talked about this. He helped Rick Berman, right? Him and Brennan Bracken. So, yeah, the majority of there's only a few good episodes, only a few good men, a few good episodes mixed in, where most of the episodes he wrote were crap. So, and he took over as showrunner in season 7, which sucked. So, yeah, I got an issue. I got an issue with Kenneth Biller. I mean, fucking Life Science and Warhead and stuff like that aside. What was the other one? The Void and Workforce was really good. But those episodes aside, I'm not him and freaking Joe Manowski. Like, Voyager has the writers that I don't like. But again, like as Robbie Dunk said, good point. It is a collaborative effort, but to know that we had those writers that I don't like contributing to this collaborative effort does make a difference, and I don't know why I'm doing this. But anywho, let's see. Do I actually have anything else to say about the episode itself? No, I don't think so. Yeah, there's not much to it. It was very devoid. It was basically just a and that ending where like, oh, this alien put in the knowledge and it was their way of saying hello. Like that doesn't even make any sense. Like, that is just so, they're just lazy. They're just lazy. They're like, oh yeah, that's why the ship is twisted. And also, as I kind of alluded to in my synopsis, like, if this weird anomalies like compressing the ship and like changing the configuration of the ship, how come there was no walls that have been ripped apart and torn apart, and maybe part of the room ended up in this other room and people getting slashed and like killed by this, or someone could have been ripped apart? Instead, like, every single room is like perfectly moved to another, and the hallways still remain perfectly intact. Like, I suppose you could make the BS argument that it's because there was intelligence involved and they were purposely making it so it didn't tear the ship apart, but that doesn't really make any fucking sense. And especially when they said, oh, we'll show the configuration of the ship and it looked all weird and twisted, whatever. How would that force like a room from a different deck to be in a different deck with a room from another deck, yet they're still perfectly intact? Like, it doesn't fucking make any sense. And I think they do kind of address that, and they come up with the general excuses. Well, I don't know, just somehow it happened. Happened because the writers are lazy. That's how it happened. Anyway, I would now like to thank my Patreon supporters very much for supporting me on the Patrons. Very much appreciated. It does help me continue with the channel. I'd like to give a big special thanks to Jordan Johnson and Brandon Neilhouse. Thank you so very, very much for your strong support. Also like to give a shout out to Tyler Cease, Benjamin Mead, Antarius, Greg Marley, Francisco, Chuck Hooks, Kyrie091, Anthony D. Benedictus, Ricky Manny Jester, Joel Valls, Alessandro Miguelcio, Norman Buchwald, Stephen Kennedy, Brenton Berg, and Allison Fordyce. Thank you so very, very much for your support. So we do have a few Patreon comments on this episode. First comment is from Kyrie091, who says, "Twisted, more like fisted, because this episode makes me feel like I've been, let's just say 7 of 9 didn't ask if she wished to copulate first. That's how this episode makes me feel. When I saw this episode coming up in my watch list, I was hoping it would be good, but it was pure booty crap. It left me saying, mate, this fucks. It made me shout, Subnosa! It makes me wish this episode wasn't in Voyager. Real talk, I don't remember this episode at all, Mark. It's your job to tell me where this episode ranks on the scale of Vic Fontaine to Endgame. You get to figure out which end of the scale is good and bad. Well, there's no good in that scale. That scale is terrible to terrible, so I think it ranks a little bit higher out of that scale, but not much. And yeah, the way you were describing it, wishing it wasn't in Voyager, is actually accurate. Pretty accurate. Anyway, next comment is from Norman Buchwald, who says, Twisted reminds me of certain Deep Space Nine Season 1 and 2 episodes of what I'd call TNG rejects, or TNG revisited, for the type of story that easily would have worked with the TNG crew, given that, with one notable exception, I liked it. It tied in at least one background officer as members were trying to find their way through the ship. The anomaly of the week is, of course, the calls, and may even have sentience, and in a way has a disaster or timescape effect of figuring how to get through this distorted phenomenon. The main issue is figuring how to get through this. The main issue is, ironically, continuity story of Neelix jealousy. Especially since in the next episode, after it appears, Neelix has a little growth of character at the end between he and Kes. At the end of this episode, it reverts back to ridiculous jealous guy the following episode. The other unique voy is something I wish we had more of in the first 2 seasons, the conflict between Chakotay and Tuvok. That was the strongest and probably why I like this episode more than most who dismiss it. When the choice finally was to do nothing, it was novel at the time, and I actually really liked it. Yes, Janeway speaking gibberish is unintentionally comical, while her harassment from their Sandrine's owner to the sentient doctor was supposed to be, and instead is cringeworthy. But other than that, it's a standard fingers over the lip anomaly of the week, which in TNG the data left on the computers would be studied by Starfleet. That's fine for a standalone episode, but for Voyager should have been significant more data about this quadrant, and this won't be the first time this season Voyager will get significant data and be forgotten. The other, obviously, in Threshold. I'll give it 7 layers of Jubilant fudge out of 10. I don't remember this Jubilant fudge, so that's why I'm not pronouncing it correctly. But I think you were being very, very generous comparing this to Disaster or Timescape. And also I disagree with you saying the premise would have worked on TNG. I think the premise would have sucked just as badly on TNG as it does here. Now, as for the Tuvok and Chakotay scenes, they're fine. Like, I don't know. Like, it was fine. I kind of, if I think about it, I kind of don't really am irritated by it. And I guess it does make sense. And I do like how they kind of confronted each other. And Tuvok, when they thought they were going to die, and Tuvok is like, I apologize if I made you feel uncomfortable, perhaps. That he felt a bit off the fact that Janeway promoted him over, him. And Chakotay was sort of... But that one scene earlier where Tuvok made a good suggestion, Chakotay is like... And he tried to say, if Captain Janeway were here... And he was like, but she's not! I'm in command! This is what I'm going to do! Like, that was too melodramatic. For me, that was a bit too over the top. So, I don't know. Like, I got mixed feelings on the Chakotay Tuvok thing, but I will say, in regards to stand back and do nothing, like, that's fucking boring. That's the, you know, that what that reminds me of? It reminds me of the episode, God, what the hell is the name of the second season episode with the two Picards? I want to say Timescape, but Timescape was the sixth season episode. It was not Times Arrow, that was the two-parter. Times Squared, there we go, I got there eventually. It reminds me of Times Squared because the solution of that episode was just to go forward. I'm like, well, that's stupid. That's all you have to do is just move the ship forward. And here, like, what you have to do is just stand there and do nothing. Like, what's the whole fucking... You're wasting my time with this bullshit if all you have to do is stand around and do nothing, and all of a sudden they're trying all these weird technobabble bullshit that I don't care about, and the solution is just to sit there and do nothing. Like, that's boring. That is boring. Like, why are you wasting my time with this shit? Anyway, that's my humble opinion on this episode. Next comment is from Stephen Kennedy, who said, "Yet another terrible episode of Voyager. At this moment in time, on a cliff edge and considering jumping off. On a personal note, I'm terrified of heights. Only Deep Space Nine can save me. These two idiots who wrote this episode don't understand what twisted means. If the ship was really been twisted, all the crew would be dead, as they would have ended up in space as the ship would have been destroyed. Voyager became a Rubik's Cube and Ground Zero was the holodeck. In Neelix's mind, Kes is worse than that William Riker, and now it's official why Kes left at the start of season 4, as she had sex with everyone on Voyager, and then opens a brothel. Suddenly, Neelix wakes up and goes to his kitchen to relax himself. So my rating is 3. Janeway is impressed with Harry Kim, but still never promoted him out of 10. This is my point exactly. And I think I forgot to mention this in Norman Buckwell's comment, but Neelix has every right to be jealous. He has every right to be jealous. Like, Tom Paris is crossing a line. But anyway, next comment is from Bricky, who says, "This episode was okay. Again, still the season didn't hit its stride yet, but it's still an entertaining and suspenseful episode, although the concept is ridiculous and the solutions seem pretty stupid. But it's an episode that I've always enjoyed to watch. There's not much to say, to be honest, so an okay episode, so my rating is 5 out of 10. Next comment is from Antarius, who says, "It's Maze Runner in space. The teaser is not very promising. We see jealous Neelix again in a space anomaly. Hurrah! Why does Kes's party have to be full of Earth traditions and there are no accompanying traditions they could honor? At least the party took place in the program, not in the dining hall of Janeway's was that word Lambda 1 holonovel? Anyway, I found it strange that Kes speaks of her and not their quarters. I always assumed she and Neelix shared one. Of course, it is not very plausible that any anomaly could alter the ship in this specific way without destroying it. Mark, what do you think about the scenes between Chakotay and Tuvok? I really liked the episode when I was younger. Now I see its flaws much more clearly. Since I still have some nostalgic feelings towards this episode, and since I liked some of the moments at the end of the episode, I will give it a 6 out of 10. Well, I already talked about how I felt about Chakotay and Tuvok scenes in Norman Buckwell's comment, so I don't really need to repeat what I said. I think their scenes were fine. Parts of it I liked, parts of it I didn't like. I don't know. I think Kes seemed to be okay with them doing all the human traditions because they're on a ship with mostly humans, and they're mostly humans that she's hanging out with. I mean, they're the ones throwing her the party, so it was a surprise party, so it's not like they could have consulted her about what some Ocampan traditions are. I suppose they could have consulted Neelix, but who knows if he actually knows. I never actually saw Maze Runner or any of those stupid movies, so I couldn't tell you how similar. I guess that must have also had like moving mazes, I suppose. Anyway, next comment is from Brandon Neal Howes, who says, "Twisted, more like missed it. Kes has never had a birthday party before, and it's not scared by walking into a dark room and being shouted at. Okay, fine, whatever." The EMH is dressed up as a stereotypical French painter and playing bartender, while Sandrine just wants to get laid. I wonder how holograms do it. Harry isn't allowed to go to Kes's birthday party because, lo and behold, another anomaly appears and Tuvok decides to go through it. So much for Vulcans being more intelligent than Terrans, which makes the inside of the ship go wibbly wobbly timey-wimey. Yeah, I don't know. It's, that is kind of dumb. I mean, to be fair to Tuvok, he had no choice. Like, he pointed out, like, there's, like, if what you said was true, then there's no avoiding this. This anomaly is going to hit us whether we want it to or not. So the best option is to go through it as quick as possible, which makes sense. But it seems like you're trying to steal Kyrie 091's shtick, because this is the second episode in a row you said more. The episode title more like, and then something that rhymes with it. But anyway, I did missed it though. Anyway, thank you, patrons, so much for your comments. So my rating for Twisted out of 10 is going to be a 3. Very poor. Yeah. So I think this episode was a giant waste of time. It was just an anomaly bullshit. And most of the episode consisted of people wandering the hallways getting lost. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention there was that one character who we saw in the episode, Eye of the Needle, the dude who was being a dick to the doctor and just talking around him and talking to Cass, and there's a whole storyline about how the doctor needs to stand up to himself. In that episode, he was talking about working out. He's like, "Oh, I was working out," and the doctor's like, "You're being reckless, and if you continue to be reckless, I'll go to the captain." In this episode, we see him, he's like, "Oh, I just got back from the gym." I'm like, this guy seems to do nothing but work out, and yet he's not like super fit. I think they should have gotten a more fit actor to play him, like that dude who B'Elanna Torres walked in on his underwear. Like, that guy was fit. Like, that would have made more sense. This guy, I mean, don't get me wrong, he's more fit than I am, but he's talking about he seems like he lives his life in the gym, so it seems like he should be more fit than that. Anyway, sorry, I got distracted. So yeah, the episode was boring. It was just people walking around the hallways being lost, and the solution was just to stand around and do nothing. Like, why are you fucking wasting my time? Why are you wasting my time? Like, as I said, I had more fun watching this episode with my friend, making fun of it and putting the spin that they're all tripping on LSD. That actually made the episode really interesting. More interesting than it actually is, because as it stands, it's boring. It's stupid. It's just pointless. And okay, there are some good character scenes. Like, I do kind of like what they do with Neelix. Trying to overcome his jealousy and talking to Chakotay about it. I kind of sort of like and not like the interactions between Tuvok and Chakotay. Like, they're kind of fine, and there were some stakes when Janeway... the whole thing with Janeway, though, like shouting gibberish and the way she saw the doctor and going blah, 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 was so stupid. And I can't help but laugh at it now, because now I have the theme in my head, the theme of that she was tripping. and that's why she's seeing these things and shouting out things at random, because she's having a bad trip. Like, why does that make it so much better? It's really bad writing if some, Joker, like, who's like throwing out like Mystery Science Theater 3000 type puns, has to do that in order to make the episode better. And that's the other thing about Mystery Science Theater 3000. I remember I had friends who liked watching those kind of like shitty old movies, the B movies, and they said that they hated Mystery Science Theater 3000. And I have a totally different like opinion and view of movies. I don't like watching those type of movies by themselves. I'm like, I get bored. I think it's stupid. It's just terrible. I don't like it. But Mystery Science Theater 2000, when they have the two aliens making fun of it, makes it entertaining. Not always. Some episodes of Mystery Science Theater, I don't think they're funny enough. But yeah, I just don't understand. I don't get the whole watch movies so bad they're good. I never understood that. Although, you know, parts of The Room I did find funny, but there's only the clips. Like if I sat down and tried to watch the whole movie, and I was like, no, it's just boring. It's not like you only get the bad scenes that were so bad they were funny, like every once in a while. Most of it's just terribly shot sex scenes and nonsensical dialogue, so it's mostly just boring to watch. But anyway, off on the track here. Like this episode, for example, is boring to watch unless you have someone sitting there making jokes about it and saying, oh, they're tripping. Like, otherwise, it's kind of fucking pointless. But as I said, I'll give it a 3 and not a 1 or a 2, because there are some decent character interactions and thrown in this episode, but not enough to save it, in my humble opinion. So that is it for my review of Twisted. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe. All that sort of thing helps me out a lot. And if you'd really like to help out the channel, you could possibly consider supporting me on Patreon. I have different rewards, such as a Patreon only series of videos that I do exclusively for my Patreon supporters, and you can leave comments that I'll read in my videos, and you know, pre-releases, other stuff like that you can check out if you are interested. Alright, so let's see what's coming up next on the channel. This coming Monday, I'll be over on Patreon doing a aforementioned Patreon exclusive video revisiting my review for The Visitor. And then on Thursday, back on my main channel, finally a new Deep Space Nine episode review with Hippocratic Oath. And then on Saturday, back to Voyager with the next episode I was referring to, Partouchian, I believe is how you pronounce it. Anyway, so that's what's coming up on my channel. Be sure to check it out as I continue to cover Star Trek Voyager and Star Trek Deep Space Nine and many other videos on Star Trek and other shows as well. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks a lot for watching.